Perhaps the only people with the right to look at images of suffering of this extreme order are those who could do something to alleviate it. The rest of us are voyeurs, whether or not we mean to be. Susan Sontag's regarding the pain of others. This video does need a trigger warning for talking about depression, suicide, and self-harm. If you do not feel comfortable hearing about these topics, you are welcome to close the video now, and I will see your dashing face in the next one. Why do we seek the feeling of despair? Is it in about to seem more interesting? Is it perhaps a cry for help to those around us? Maybe it's neither of those things, and we've simply been caught in the whirlwind that is the romanticization of suffering in media. Whatever it may be, we will unravel the threads of the desire to be sad together. We'll take a look at the most depressing platform on the internet, Tumblr. I'm kidding. Sort of. We'll deep dive into the sad girl aesthetic and wonder why on earth Spotify keeps recommending me this particular playlist. We'll meander through the space of art made to portray suffering so we as consumers can feel the pain of others, and we'll talk about the dread that comes with the notion of a moment of happiness coming to an end. If any of these topics resonate with you or catch your ear, then you're in the right place. Consider subscribing as it helps me continue making videos like these. Preamble out the way. Let's dive into the space of emotional voyeurism. Let me preface this by saying that I myself have been diagnosed with clinical depression by a licensed psychiatrist and feel as though I am somewhat fit to speak on this topic, purely from experience. Are you familiar with Tumblr? If you've clicked on this video with intrigue, I think it's pretty safe to assume you are. But what you may not be familiar with, as I was not either before researching this video, is the culture built around self-identified depression and subsequent mental illnesses. The word depression is tossed around flippantly, and it has been since the rise of the sad girl trend in the late 2000s and 2010s. What we deem as depressive or depression is often not clinical. Losing your keys or failing a test does not make you depressed. Yes, it may be upsetting, and in some cases may be the catalyst which leads to a mental break, but it is not depression. It's simply distress caused by everyday challenges. Why then has there been a rise in the self-diagnosis of depression if this was not a common feat before? It boils down to two facts: the sense of community and the will to be more interesting or relatable. One of which holds merit in a way which touches my heart and is near and dear to my experience, while the other is a little bit more self-servient and has caused a huge loss in reputation when it comes to talking about actual diagnosed clinical depression. You see, these online communities, whether it be Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, or any other form of social media wherein users can share their experience, often creates a space that people, the younger party especially, find themselves to be understood and seen. It is human to seek that sense of community and understanding from others. And when one feels a negative emotion, it is far easier to reach out and find solace in those who you do not face in real life. A negative emotion suffered by two relieves the load of feeling alienated from those around you. But what happens when you finally grow from that sadness and suffering? I've only mentioned clinical depression so far, which too can be overcome and managed, but more fleetingly and less often recognized is seasonal depression. What happens when the bad moment or time period has passed? What befalls your emotional state then? Do you become alienated from the very group who you stood by when you were suffering? Oftentimes the answer to this question is no, but not by choice. You see, once you are part of the community, it becomes very difficult to heal unless those physically around you are encouraging you to. Picture this. You've developed a bout of seasonal depression, and so you seek out a subreddit in order to feel understood. You make countless impressions sharing your battle with depression and how you are suffering with suicidal thoughts and potential self-harm. But what happens once the seasonal depression has passed? Do you leave the subreddit and heal, perhaps? Or do you continuously indulge in distressing content in order to remain understood and part of the community? Unfortunately, the latter often rings true, and in most cases results in something a lot more fatal than just continuous depression. Indulging in sad or harmful content can lead to a perpetual cycle of unhealing. I know this from experience alone, and it takes an outside force to pull you away from this form of content in order to truly gain a new perspective on what the indulgence of self-deprecating media can do. All this to say about those who are truly suffering, let's take a brief look at those who perpetuate their sadness for views and likes. It is becoming increasingly common for influencers and celebrities to maintain a mental health awareness campaign. While on the surface, this seems to be a good idea and should be helpful, it often comes with falsehoods and misinformation regarding quick fixes and the solutions to all your mental health problems. Therapeutic language is misused and diagnoses are misplaced when influencers attempt to appeal to their audiences, not to mention the influencers who genuinely fake depression and depressive episodes for sympathy and engagement. This fuels the flames of clinical depression being seen as faux or improperly reviewed and ultimately results in more damage than improvement. To quote an MA Chronicle article, when turned into an aesthetic, a beautiful visualized style, the sad girl becomes an intentional performance of pain, not a reality of mental health issues. But what exactly is the sad girl aesthetic? I mean, the name is pretty self-explanatory, to be fair, but some examples. Lana Del Rey's Pretty When You Cry, Spotify's Sad Girl Starter Pack, the Sad Girl Winter Candle. What the hell is there? Why is there a candle for that? I don't understand. What? The idea of being sad and the notion of appearing as though you are in despair has become romanticized so heavily in modern media that it's actually been turned into an aesthetic and a trope. Women post black and white photos with upset expressions on their faces. Fiction portrays women as tragically beautiful, and social media eats this stuff up. Have you heard the expression, "you look hot when you cry"? Yeah, our negative emotions are genuinely being made into a performative act in order to attract attention. The sad girl aesthetic simplifies the real issue at hand, that of young people experiencing a massive spike in depressive cases, and portrays it in a way that is consumable and marketable to an audience. Don't trust everything you see online, and if you need help, reach out to somebody nearby rather than a stranger on the other side of the globe. Humor me now while we circle back to the opening quote of this video. Perhaps the only people with the right to look at images of suffering of this extreme order are those who could do something to alleviate it. The rest of us are voyeurs, whether or not we mean to be. Susan Sontag. This quote hails from Sontag's Regarding Pain of Others, and it highlights the potential for the detached observation of others' pain to be a form of voyeurism, or emotional voyeurism as I like to call it. What Sontag is getting at here is to observe suffering is inevitable, but to be able to empathize and actually aid that suffering would mean you are no longer observing but feeling. In turn, the inability to empathize and only sympathize, coupled with the inability to help, results in this emotional voyeurism. It has become commonplace to seek out art which perpetuates suffering in order to be the voyeurs to our sadness. An example I like to use is the novel A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Damn, I said that first try, let's go. This book broke me to the point where I genuinely could not bring myself to finish it, in spite of the emotional toll that it had already taken on me. I won't be discussing the plot or happenings of the novel, but the themes present consist of trauma, sadness, suffering, neglect, abuse, violence, addiction, and that's just naming a few. It's a very heavy read. If you do decide to go and pick up a copy for yourself, caution, please read the trigger warnings, please read the themes, please read the tags. Yeah, it's very, very heavy. Excellent novel, but very heavy. I asked myself once completing my attempt at finishing the novel, why do I feel so strongly for our main character Jude when I myself have never actually experienced these things? And why the hell is this book so popular when it does this?
Why would you write this? Why would you write this book?
To people. It's relatively straightforward when you understand the human need for feeling. We resonate with the main character in the fact that he is human. We remember we too are human and are capable of feeling the same emotions that he does. And when this is taken into account, we inadvertently feel and experience those emotions for ourselves. But why then is it so damn popular when it does terrible things to people? Because we seek to feel intensely, no matter the emotion present. We seek the sadness through another because we do not wish to experience these traumatic circumstances ourselves, but we do wish to feel as deeply as he does. This ties back to Sontag's quote, "We cannot alleviate the main character's suffering, therefore we are voyeurs. We seek a source to feel the emotions when we ourselves do not wish to conjure the circumstances wherein they may happen. We cannot empathize with the protagonist, but we can sympathize, and that is enough to drive our emotions to the extreme. But what follows an experience like this? Rumination and further sadness? Perhaps, and after that, Do we then go back to our lives and experience happiness as a constant? No. Happiness is not now and never will be a consistent state of being. All moments of happiness are fleeting. This is fact. Why then do we dread the time when these moments come to an end? Because we don't know what will follow. I have diagnosed anxiety. Yeah, we have a whole list going here, right? And it is because of this that I experience this dread in moments where it is not even logical, or sometimes at a much higher degree than would be normal. I walk through life wondering when my happiness will come to an end, and what negative emotion is sure to follow. But it doesn't need to be viewed this way. The aforementioned perspective is purely binary and offers no grey area. Happiness and sadness are not the only two emotions which are felt by us as people. A moment of joy doesn't need to be followed by a moment of pain. It could be followed by contentment or gratitude. But as a double-edged sword, the same rings true for sadness, unfortunately, which often leads us to accept the state of sadness we are in and not make any effort to grow. The idea that we don't know what follows our current emotional state is terrifying. We naturally fear the unknown, and when one has been in the state of a negative emotion for so long, it becomes comfortable. While not pleasant, it is familiar, and what follows may not be. We find it much easier to exist in pain and suffering rather than to grow and endure those growing pains of healing. Dealing with dread is a part of everyone's existence, but it's how we deal with that dread that determines whether we grow or remain stagnant. If you have any further thoughts, opinions, or counterpoints to anything stated in the video, please feel free to drop them in the comments down below. If you just want to have a chat with me or your fellow viewers, you are more than welcome to do so as well. I do reply to comments for the first day or two after uploading, so I will be down there chatting with you guys. If you did enjoy the video, consider giving it a like and subscribe so you don't miss future content like this. Stay safe, stay educated, and I will see you lovely human beings next time. Bye bye.